It's going to be the very first time we're going to be introducing to you the Two Armenian Men podcast. Tonight, we have a guest, Shant, Alicia Naser, Shant. Guys.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I have no clue what's going on, so I'm just here as like a person attending, watching the podcast between you two. So it should be interesting.
We have a show for you tonight, Shant.
Intro, Alicia, and you know.
Yeah, well, that's number one on the agenda.
Well, Alicia, I can tell you that more than you know, more than you think, I am also a very big fan of yours. I scroll through your Instagrams all the time. You put up a lot of amazing original content, a lot of well thought out content that a lot of people nowadays just don't take the time to describe and to really put into words what you do. And I got to commend you for that. I'm not very vocal with my compliments. I tend to save them for more in person or more intimate settings like our podcast. So I just wanted to let you know that I really do find your posts, your
stories.
What are those things called? I don't even know. Stories, but no, I'm talking about more the flip things that
the carousels
posts are now, like
the carousels.
There you go. Amazing content. Alicia, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What's your background? What's your schooling? What's your nationality? What's your blood type?
It's wild you say that, because I was watching Grey's Anatomy the other day and I'm like, I need to make sure I know my blood type. And I know shouldn't admit something like that, but it's fine. First of all, thank you. That's so kind, and I'm so glad we have that compliment recorded.
Gotcha.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoy the content. So I'm a board certified behavior analyst. I have a master's degree in educational psychology. I'm getting my PhD in applied behavior analysis. So essentially I'm about 8 months out. This is like the final stretch of my PhD. So almost there. Applied behavior analysis is just the study of human behavior. So it's probably it is one of the most recent areas of psychology, as opposed to all the other domains of psychology. And it's just a study of human behavior, how and why humans do what they do. But not looking at it from a standpoint of like, oh, your thoughts and your feelings are these things that we can't see and they're just like floating around. And like, we talk about thoughts and feelings, and it's just, it's like you can't really see a thought or a feeling, but we talk about them all the time because they're such a heavy part of conversation. But applied behavior analysis considers them actual behaviors, like smoking is a behavior, itching your hand is a behavior, like any other behavior. We look at thoughts and feelings as any other behavior. There's a lot more to it, but that's essentially what I do. And I've been in the field forever, it seems. I did some clinical training at University of Nebraska Medical Center and Johns Hopkins Hospital in Balti. Balti's a good time. Really. Number of gunshot wounds a day, it's crazy. And the number of people coming in with heroin overdoses and just like literally just like needles in their arm, stacked up in their arm, and they say it is. But I will also say, like, you do get that in any city. Like, I'm from Detroit. In Detroit, you get the same thing, and but there are some nice parts of Baltimore as well. People are very kind, but it is really rough around the hospital. So, I also need to, really quickly, I do just need to give a disclosure that this is not therapy, and nothing that I say represents the Behavior Analyst Certification Board or my school, the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. I need to say that. And I almost forgot. That's the most important point.
Okay, good.
Now, go ahead. Oh, and I'm Palestinian, Lebanese, and Armenian. Don't know my blood type.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. Adi, make sure you cut out that part that was very important for her to just no. So so behavioral. I didn't go to school, so it's hard for me to say words sometimes. But
don't say that. Therapy starts now. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So are you like, when you're in a conversation with anyone in person or in this setting right now on video, is it very hard for you to just like not be analyzing like what I'm doing right now? If I like look away, if my hands are doing something, or are you always processing these things, or is it hard to not process them?
Yeah, it's a good question. I get that question all the time, especially on airplanes and especially when I go on dates. It's like, are you analyzing me? It's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, did you go into behavior analysis first and then you started analyzing behavior, or did you analyze behavior and then go into behavior analysis? And for me, I've always had like a very deep interest in just why we do what we do and like why. Like, so I don't think it's any different than if I were working at Chick-fil-A or something. I think I would still be thinking about human behavior and analyzing people. But to answer your question, no, because to answer your question, yes, I can turn it off. And no, I'm not analyzing you guys right now, because I think to hear and to listen is a really important part of behavior. And to understand behavior, you have to listen. But if I'm like trying to understand somebody, I need to really be listening. And so I don't attend, and I know how to turn it off because it's exhausting for me. It's like, I am analyzing though, that like you're typing something and he's texting and I'm just kidding. Well, I'm not kidding, but no, I don't analyze.
Turn my camera off for the rest of the podcast. So.
No, but to the degree that I can change thoughts and behaviors, no, I don't analyze it that in depth, but I am very aware. Let's just say that I'm very aware and very I notice things.
Wow. So Alicia, can you tell me a little bit about why, put it this way, why wouldn't you tell somebody that you're a behavioral analyst? Like, would you on a date withhold that at first, so first they can actually feel comfortable and then you would tell them? Or is it something that you immediately tell and disclose to everybody? Because I know that could create sort of it's intimidating. It's like telling somebody that you're, like a police officer or a CIA agent or something like that. It's almost like people get kind of
they withhold themselves a bit,
right? Because they get insecure about what they're about to tell you, or how they're going to be.
No, it's a great question, and it actually pertains to what we'll be talking about in terms men and women and dating and just marriage and all of that. So I actually I did grapple with this for a while because it was a thing. It was a thing because guys felt intimidated and verbally expressed they felt intimidated. Or before we would even go on a date, they'd be like, "Why are you going to analyze me?" And it's like, no, dude, now I gotta fucking have to. It's or if let's say conflict came up, I'm very much about conflict resolution in a mature way and talking through stuff. And that's impossible to do if somebody's preconceived notion of you is that you're judging them and analyzing them. And I'm like, all right, well, now I already lost you. Anytime you're in an argument with a romantic partner, if the second somebody says, well, you always do this, or you lost them. And it's kind of the same for me when someone's like, well, you're analyzing me. Or it's like, no, I'm actually just trying to have nonviolent communication and just talk things out. So it's tough. So I guess to answer your question, I'm at a place now, though, in my disposition to life and to relationships and dating, that it's part of who I am and my meaning in life. And I love it. And I feel deeply about it. And it says something about somebody else. If that's intimidating to them, then that's a red flag for me. And it's just hey, because what you want is one of the main aspects of desire, especially in long-term relationships, to maintain desire in marriages and what have you, is there's really two components. There's longing. So if you ask couples, I know I'm digressing when we come back to our little outline here, but essentially if you ask couples, and there's been research to show this, if you ask couples, what are the instances in which you're most attracted to or desire your partner? one of them is longing. So when the partner was away on a trip and they're coming back, or the thought of being with them again and reuniting after a long time, or even she or he has gone away at work and we're going to both meet each other for dinner. So longing. And the second is when they're in their element, when they're self-sustaining, when they're doing what they love, when they are passionate about something, when they have passionate about meaning. So those are the two instances. So for me, it's like a healthy romantic partner is someone who's going to be like, I love that you love what you do. Mm-hmm. And also and the other thing is trust. If I say I turn it off when we're just in personal conversations, and if I say that I'm not analyzing somebody has to trust that I'm not, because there's no, which is hard to do because like, how do they really know I'm not? But yeah, I also then have to be like forthcoming, be like, you know what, I just went like turned on, I got to turn back off, and that's like okay to do. It just has to be spoken about.
Yeah. So I wrote one thing down, which I think I heard this. I heard you say, so just please clarify. You said it's a losing battle when you say you always do that in an argument.
It's not a losing battle. So good catch. Generally during conflict resolution in an argument, the moment someone responds or says something like, well, you always whatever, or you, as opposed to when you do blank, I feel blank. So we're making it about the person and they are the culprits, or it's because they always do this thing. The second you say you always say you're going to call me and you don't call me, they're going to think of every instance in which they called you. And now you're just completely lost the point of the conflict to begin with, and you're not going to even get anywhere. And now it's like, pitting each other up against the other, when really, if you're in a romantic partnership, it should be you're on the same team. So it's like, how do we get to a solution and an end game, So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I asked because me and Betty had an argument the other day and I used that and it didn't bode well for me. So duly noted to now say, when you do this, I feel this.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. I swear it's a game changer. Not probably, it is. It's a game changer because you're still validating how the other person's actions are affecting you, but you're not making them responsible for your emotions. And when you make somebody responsible for your emotions, then they're like, well, now I feel like I disappointed you. And it just becomes this thing that spirals out of control more than it needs to.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Cause, I'm glad my wife doesn't listen to our podcast, so I could take some notes and I'm going to text her this, like, hey, next time, I got you.
One of your questions that you had sent me was, what am I extremely passionate about? And really what it is like limiting human suffering, alleviating human suffering. And that's like, sounds very broad and cliche, but essentially it's like humans, we tend to get in our own way sometimes in romantic partnerships, in our careers, in our friendships and parenting, and if we have estranged family members, what have you, finances. And we have like these self-limiting beliefs. And so my research, not all of it, but the majority of it is on understanding human language and cognition. So how language, the meaning we give to language and how it influences our behavior, but the impact that has on our life satisfaction and well-being. And a lot of, sorry, I was just going to say say it again. I'm sorry.
Can you elaborate a little bit about what you're studying? That sounds fascinating. So human language?
Okay. So I actually love it. I'm glad you think it's fascinating. So, think about your thoughts are, okay, here, let me start this way. Nothing would mean anything in life, at least to language able humans, so non-animals, okay? We are animals, but language able humans, unless we had language. Because language tells me that this is a phone, that this is a mouse. If we didn't have language, we could still communicate, because they used to communicate with symbols and signs back in the day. You can communicate with sounds, you can communicate with your hands, right? And so it's communication, but there's a difference between communication and language. Communication exists amongst other animals. You hear? I know this gets really exciting. I love it. This is like cocktail party. I give people on this one. And yes, I go to cocktail parties. But so all, animals have some type of communication, but humans are the only ones who have complex language. And from that, we can create novel, new sentences we've never heard before out of nowhere. We can create things because of complex language. And it also separates us from, this is a really important point, it separates us from non-human animals because there's something called bidirectionality, an event report relation and report event relation. So I'm going to explain really quickly what that is. If I report that I was going through a breakup, okay, I'm reporting that I went through a breakup. And first of all, when I went through the breakup, I was feeling some type of way. When I'm talking about the breakup, I'm feeling some type of way. So going through the breakup, and then even is the event report, and then the report event is I'm reporting about the event of the breakup. And it's making me feel the same way as if I was going through the breakup again, but I'm actually not. I'm just reporting about the event. You follow?
Yeah, so with a car,
anything. And so that's where most of anxiety and depression comes from. And psychological mood disorders is essentially, if you think about it, we're talking about our lives and things that happen to us and conditions and events and stimulate things in our life. And first of all, they mean something to us when we contact them and interact with them. So this is a cup. It means there's hot tea in here and what have you. And then even if this wasn't in my environment right now, if I just talk about it, I might still get the same sensation internally as when I'm actually drinking it. So to answer your question, sorry, I forgot where I was going with that. My research is on, and my dissertation is on understanding how language and what have you affects our mood and how we feel about ourselves and life satisfaction.
That's unbelievable, man. Wow. That's so interesting. So,
that couldn't have sounded more fake. That was so fake.
What do you mean? I don't know how to describe exactly how interesting. I don't have the words to describe exactly how interesting that sounds to me. It's weird for me to say that because you won't really understand why I find it so interesting. Mm-hmm. It's more of just describing what a lot of us go through, but in a very, very scientific way. So what I'm trying to get to is some of the things that people study for their PhDs and whatnot isn't necessarily something that everybody or the general public really understands or really, really wants to talk about, but yet the sort of content that you share on Instagram is more directed towards like the vulnerabilities, I guess, of people of our generation, people that are, dating, people that are trying to either get married or are married. It's sort of content that's very, very super relevant, basically, to the general population, right? It's not very, very scientific information that's sort of very niche. Mm-hmm. What I'm wondering sort of is what else are you very, very interested about that you think is actually very, very relevant, very, very important to the everyday, just normal population? What isn't being talked about very, very openly right now?
Men's mental health, I strongly feel, this is a personal claim, I strongly feel needs to be spoken about more. It has been spoken about, but it's not up there on the highest in the hierarchy of what we need to be talking about and what people are talking about. But I think men's mental health, but specifically, there's like research and psychology based answers to things, and then there's my subjective opinion. So I'm just prefacing this by saying that my subjective opinion is that I think we do need to be talking about men's mental health more, because at the onset, and anything I say, there's always an antidote. There's always devil's advocate to it. I'm just highlighting some things that I think do need a little bit more attention. That doesn't mean other things are not important. But at the onset, men are told, are fed a narrative and told a message that they have to be tough, don't show emotion, don't cry, only be this way. And that is really unrealistic, because fear and loneliness and pain and worry and what have you are all, all humans experience that. It's just a byproduct of being a human being. So to feed men a narrative, or to at least insinuate that they don't cry or you're a pussy kind of a thing, which I believe I heard in one of your episodes, is like, that's it's not a helpful message. Let's just say that. So that's what, to answer your question, Ari, what do I think needs to be talked about is that. And then also I think,
can you let's get down to the meat of this.
I am. What I was going to say is the counterpart to it, though.
No. I want you to zero in on this. Let's talk about men's mental health. What about men's mental health needs to be talked about? What are men going through? Are men going through depression? Are men dealing with a lot of insecurity issues? What are you seeing? What are you witnessing in very, very plain sight that just isn't being talked about? Like, are men and women just changing places altogether? Like, are some men just becoming very feminine? Are some women just becoming very masculine? Or is that not even related to this whole thing? What are the men's mental health issues? That's what I started wanting to know. Is like, what is it exactly?
Well, you tell me, because you two are the men. Here's the thing about it is that it's often underreported, because you have to think coming forward and saying what you're struggling with is also not something that's always reinforced for men either. But I do think generally in the past few years, there's been more frequent observations and reports of feeling a lack of direction, feeling unsure, feeling behind in life is a common, this timeline of life, feeling behind in life is a common, report that I hear. Anxious, like never enough, never feeling enough. Like, what am I supposed to be doing now? Like, what's the most common is, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. That is the one phrase I hear all the time. And the irony is that it's like, this is your life right now. And men, but not just men, generally most, majority of the population. But again, it's also underreported, and who's to say it's entirely accurate when men do come forward, because they're shamed for it. There's shame behind. Listen, let me give you an example. If a woman comes home and says, I got laid off, she does not get the same response as if a man comes home and says, I just got laid off. Now, there's shame behind that. I let the family down. Now her parents think I'm no good. Now I let my kids, there's so much it's heavy. It's a heavy load to carry. But if a woman comes home and says that, the same thing, the response is not the same, or at least I should say, perhaps the level of shame experienced or indirectly applied is not, I don't think, the same.
How should a man be gauging his success as a man? Like, what is the definition right now of healthy masculinity, if you will?
So, okay, let me start by saying this. One of the first things that one of your podcast episodes was about, it was titled like, what should men want from a marriage, right? Or what should men want in marriage? I think that even just phrasing it that way in the question itself implies a lot. So the word should implies that, like, this is an expectation that you should live up to. And can get a little dangerous if we have these preconceived notions and expectations that people should live up to, because what happens if they don't live up to it? Then there's shame, there's guilt, there's I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, look at me, I can't do anything right kind of a thing. How to gauge success? That was your question, correct? I'm trying to reorient myself to the question. How should
not so much how do you gauge success, but like your being, right? Your masculine being. There's a lot of definitions floating around about what masculinity is, or sort of how a lot of our guys now base what their masculine, how they should be as a man, right? Yeah. In your opinion, what is healthy masculinity? What is like how does one be a healthy masculine male now, right now?
Okay, so I don't use the terms toxic and healthy masculinity. Many people do, and that's fine. I just don't. I think all masculinity these days is branded as toxic masculinity, and I don't think that's fair because a lot of these terms and these just catchphrases are used and they've evolved over time to now where we're just throwing them out way too much and they're not even representing what they originally were intended to represent. And I just think things get lost. We have to remember that all humans want to feel they belong to something, including a purpose or a community, a group of people. So if that's your thing, your niche is that you find these hardcore feminists who are like toxic men. If that works for you, that's what you're going to do. Okay. But then you're throwing out the word toxic masculinity. But people often forget, and men too, and women, that there's biological and cultural limits to how we manifest our behavior. So men are actually, stature-wise, stronger, more masculine in every sense of the word. So when I think masculinity, I don't think toxic or healthy masculine. I don't use that. I just masculine. I literally just think like stature, biological influence, and then culturally. Like if you think back to hunters and gatherers, it was like men going out to hunt and what have you for very good reasons, because biologically they had more capability to and being able to survive. It always comes down to the survival of the fittest. And this is one of the key points. And Jordan Peterson is a famous psychologist, says this. There's toxic masculinity is really used by people who forget that there's or can't distinguish a difference between narcissistic power and compulsion, narcissistic power and compulsion by a man versus confident competence. Mm. So I'll just say it again. There's a difference between narcissistic power and compulsion, and then a man who is competent and confident, and also confident in his competence. They're two totally different. So if you're an insecure woman and a man is confident and competent, you're probably, if you're insecure and that threatens you, you're probably not going to like it. And so I think that's where toxic masculinity gets thrown around sometimes. So yeah, what do you have for me? You're asking me what, and that's what I think about toxic masculinity. But another really important point is this: people often forget that men are shamed for many things. The suicide rate is highest in men for a reason. Like I said, I gave you the example of if a man comes home and says he got laid off. People often forget men have the hardest jobs, the less ideal jobs. They're I've never seen trash. Yeah, like picking up trash. The garbage men come around. There's no garbage women. Construction workers, they often have the most risky jobs. Most of wrongfully incarcerated are men. There's a lot that men take on that often it is acknowledged and it's spoken about, definitely. I just don't think as much as it should be. So
it sounds like, let me just get this straight. So it sounds like you're saying that very, very much so the definition of masculinity really dates back to our hunter-gatherer origins.
I'm not giving you a definition, but I would. No, I'm not giving you a definition, but I would just say masculinity, literally, when I think of masculinity, is I think of stature. Then there's a cultural piece to it, like Arab culture and Middle Eastern culture. It's like the man takes care of the woman, and I mean, not even just in our culture, but generally, like the man's the breadwinner. And some people might think of that as masculinity. I don't, but I think that's more caregiving, and that can go for men or women. Go ahead.
Listen, I'm just genuinely curious. Let's not talk about Arab. Let's not talk about any of that. Let's just talk about the typical American couple, typical white American couple.
I don't know about that. I'm just kidding.
Why not?
I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
So, what would be in your definition, in your opinion? I wouldn't say in your definition. In your opinion, and let this not be a professional opinion. Let this not even be a studied opinion. Let's just say that this would be a woman's opinion. One woman's opinion is what makes healthy traits for a man that's sustainable in a long-term relationship or a marriage. Let's not call them healthy masculine traits. Let's just call them healthy traits that make a man, as opposed to just a person living in the house.
I don't think I can't give you an answer for that because whatever I would say for a man, I would say the same thing for a woman.
You don't think there's a little difference?
What about all this hunter-gatherer bullshit that you said a couple minutes ago?
Yeah, no. First of all, it's not BS. It's true.
The shitty jobs.
Okay.
The shitty jobs we're doing? Nothing?
Yeah. So there is no difference. Gotcha. So, okay.
No, hold on. Let me see this. Okay. I'll do this and I'll go about it from a different angle. When you guys were talking about what a man should want from a marriage, right? Like, what are the things you look for? Definitely the list you gave. The very first thing you said was sex. Okay. And yeah. Oh no, I know. Just to be clear. Yeah. Honestly, Shant,
can you tell me what the issue?
I do. And I actually, I do. I have many.
I'm getting pissed away. I can't even have that.
Let me know when you're ready.
They turned out into Andrew Tate.
So here's the thing. There's not like sex is necessary. It's one of the most important aspects of a marriage and of a relationship for sure. But it was the very first thing you said. Okay. It was the very first thing you mentioned. And that's not, I mean, sure, it is, but it's not, if that's the first and only thing and the highest priority, it's not necessarily sustainable, especially in the way, I'm going to lay it. Can I just like be very direct about it?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Especially in the way that you laid it out. And I'll tell you why. You had said in other past relationships that the sex was good, so you overlooked other things. And you had said, like, I have to come home from work all the time. You know, if I come home from work after the end of the day and I have to fuck you, just don't be annoying. At least also too, like, be like, I don't know. You were saying about being smart, have something to say, but also
can you not paraphrase like this? Can we so just
yes, I want.
There's a couple episodes.
Verbatim, I wrote it down. You said, I'm going to fuck you for the rest of my life. I have it in quotes. Okay, that's what you said. Then you said, I don't want my wife to have psychological issues. Bro, and then I put, bro, you have psychological issues. But we'll talk about that. And then, okay, let me just, I'm just going to lay it out.
That's by the way.
You had said, the first thing you said was sex. And so my response to that is, there are if you want a healthy, long-term, like nice and fulfilling and satisfying and sexually appealing and intimate relationship, marriage, whatever it is you want, sure, yes, sex needs to be a component, but it was the very first thing you said, which shows that your value, you got to think about your values. Like, what are your values? And when Shant was talking about Betty, he had said, like, we can have conversations and work out, like their conflict resolution seems to be good, except for the other day when he said something about, but when, you're talking about things and the fact that you had mentioned, like, she doesn't get jealous and there's like an understanding, it seems, of the two of you and a teamwork dynamic. And then also like mutual respect and admiration and appreciation for one another. And actually, one of the things I loved most about what you're saying, and already to get to your other question about what does a woman look for in a man, like what makes them masculine. I can only answer based, like the answer I'm going to give you is what I think. It's not like there's no scientific answer for that because everybody has a different answer. But when you were talking about the deal that didn't go through, and you had said that Betty's response, you were like, substantial amount of money and what have you. Her response was to support you. And not to shame you for it, but to support you through it. First of all, the fact that I think things like that, so understanding, empathy, conscientiousness, emotional regulation, admiration, mutual respect, all of those things. If you're making a shawarma sandwich, it's like, all right, you want the shawarma without the you want the shawarma sandwich, but you don't want all the other pieces that come in it. You just want the chicken and the shawarma. You don't want, like, you need the bread, you need the garlic sauce, you need all of the pieces that make up a healthy relationship. And if you just have the chicken, it's not a full shawarma sandwich. It's just the pieces of chicken. And like, that's still good, but like, it's not the whole thing. And so when you were talking, I'm segueing here a little bit, but when you were talking about how Betty responded to you in that situation, I thought it was amazing. And it just speaks to the fact that kind of marriage is hard to come by, first of all, by the way. And it speaks to the dynamic that you guys have, in which she didn't shame you for it, but her being able to support you through it, and her response to you probably just, if anything, made you feel like everything would be all right. You figure it out. Like, let's move forward and keep going, as opposed to like, fuck, I'm letting everybody down. And now, like, then when you have that mentality, now it's like, we're not having sex tonight. Sex isn't good. Now we're both like, don't want to talk to each other, where there's tension, and that's not fun. So essentially or to get to your question is like, well, you didn't ask a question. I was like, I was writing out all my responses back. Is you have to look at your value system. The most important place to start is value systems. So what does a woman want? I can't tell you, because I don't know, everyone's values, but I do know what values make up generally healthy relationships that last and that are fulfilling. And those are the ones I mentioned. I have a lot of other notes on what you guys might talked about if you want me to keep going, but go.
At one point, not right now, Ari's thinking he's trying to come up with the counter argument right now. So keep thinking. At one point, I do want to talk about the argument we did have. If we have time, maybe you could analyze it, and because it was about chores in the house, and it's a big battle between us. So maybe if we have time later.
Okay, I'll mention a few other things while you're thinking. So the theme across many of the things that you had mentioned about what men should want in a marriage was as if you were writing a list and someone has to check off all these boxes. And there was no box or no counter list that said, what am I bringing to the table? What kind of person am I being for this person? It was, I want her to be able to, like, the last thing I will say for those listening, it was one of the last things, but you said she has to be able to cook Armenian food. But you said, I don't want her to have psychological issues, because if I'm fused up, I need her to be able to, we can't be bumping heads when we're both triggered. You don't want her to always go on drives with you, which I totally get. I love a solid nighttime drive by myself solo. But
never done that, but
the values of mine.
No, hey, I do value that as well. And you should value autonomy and separateness, because that creates longing, which creates desire for sure. But healthy relationships and partnerships that last are two individuals who, if you want certain traits and certain characteristics in an individual, you first of all, do they align with your values and the values that really sustain? And then also, are you embodying them yourself? It's like you want a woman to have all of these things, as if what's in it for her? I mean, you're a great guy. I know that for sure. But I don't mean it like that. I mean it as in, if she's having a hard day, are you going to be there and listen without saying she's complaining? If something is bothering her, are you going to sit and try to work it out, work through it without saying she's on a rant or she's nagging at you? You have to think about what emotionally and relational self-awareness and emotional agility and emotional intelligence. There's something to be said about emotionally understanding yourself in a relationship. And if you want somebody who can, like a Betty sounds great. It requires of you to perhaps start going for different women as well. Because if you're going for women who have all these things, then maybe it's not what you really want. If you want like a little bit in the best of both worlds, like you can have all those things. You just got to start going for different people. It sounds like you go. I'm not saying you. I'm just saying it sounds like red flag people. Is it muffled?
Yeah, something was going on. I think on Adi's end.
Yeah, it's muffling a little bit. Sorry, Alicia, can you say whatever you just said over the last 5-10 seconds again?
Yeah. I was gonna. Is it muffled? Are we good?
Not so much. I think so.
Okay. Did you want me to repeat it for the sake of repeating it, or just to test the audio?
No, just in case if it didn't actually come through.
Well, I forget. And then there's a few pieces about fatherhood. There's a few pieces about fatherhood that I thought are important. And it plays a role in men's mental health. You guys tell me where you want to go with this, or if you want me to touch on it.
No, I think that this is the meat of this discussion is really talking about why I'm wrong. I completely understand. Maybe I came off very, very insensitive by mentioning sex first. It's just always been a recurring theme in my relationships. That was more of a personal issue than it was sort of just a general value for men. This is an actual personal thing. The reason why I mentioned it is because it was a problem of mine in previous relationships. Now, the only few core things that I look at for a relationship as prerequisites for that relationship to be sustainable are basic human needs, are basic human necessities. And
but
if you look at
it, just pieces. Sorry, go ahead.
If you really boil it down, it was food, sex, and what was it? Pleasure. Like just pleasure in general. That for me is
food and sex are pleasure.
No. I'm talking about hobbies. I'm talking about
you're talking about conversations, educated woman, yeah.
No, I'm talking about basic needs first before I move on to more dynamic, more sort of particular traits, which I do obviously value, but the basics really do it for me. If you don't have the basics, none of the other shit really matters.
And the basics are sex and in food and
food.
Okay. Okay. So
you did say, Ari, Alicia, you did have it in your notes because Ari, you did say like in your previous relationships, the sex was good, but you overlooked everything else. So shouldn't that devalue that portion of being number one for you? Because
we didn't even discuss what I overlooked. Is that not? Are we just talking about the fact that I overlooked?
Well, hold on. So that's a good point. What I'll say is, even though you said it was just a personal thing, not a general, I actually don't think many men probably wouldn't disagree with what you're saying. And I think that's where they get stuck, is not because they don't know, but just we don't teach this in school. They don't teach what values you look for in a romantic partner. And we didn't learn that. Their parents were like, just freaking marry someone who's like has money and like that's it. And make sure her last name's good and like she's not a slut. Like that is it. So I think generally overall men do get confused and stuck because they of course you want to be attracted to your partner and what have you, but I hear this all the time from men across the board. They'll go for someone who is really super pretty, little skinny little thing and whatever, and the sex is good, or maybe it's good for a little bit, but then they get stuck and they hit like a plateau and they're like, there was no depth. There wasn't anything there. Or like, it just wasn't going to work out. And like, when you get down to the meat of it, it's like, well, let's think about what are the values? What are your values? And are you going for individuals? Are you going for women who have shared values? Well, if you don't even know what your values are to begin with, or if your values are misaligned in their values of your culture and your families, like cars and money and good, food, and then you're probably going to look for an individual who just has those same values too, which might also be misaligned. And then it's just you're going to realize this is not working out because all along those values weren't even yours. So I think men get stuck when the values that they think are theirs, they realize later around like 35, these have not been my values all along. And it's honestly a common theme that I've seen the past like 2 years. And then it's like broke up after a 2-year relationship. I thought this, and now I got to do this whole revamping of like, I feel lost and I'm 35 and I'm supposed to be, whatever. And now what do I do? And it's like, let's just reevaluate your value system. And like, you might not even know them. We can just start there. Does that make sense?
I feel like you've been holding this back for the last 51 minutes of this podcast. I feel like you were trying to, like right now, you didn't even say, Ari, this is your issue.
No, I was going to say it last week. I was going to text you after I watched. I was going to be like, bro, you need to, and then I was just like, I'll just wait.
Okay, I guess I have a little bit more time tonight. I thought originally we were going to end this call at the 1 hour mark. This is going to be an extended episode. Yeah. So the episode started here at 51 minutes in. Alicia basically ended 34 years of whatever I know to be true of what I value in a relationship, and basically is saying that everything that most Armenian men, most FOB men value are values that they don't even know personally why they have. They're values that are instilled in them by society, by culture. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yes, but it's for any individual, all humans. Yeah. We, from the onset, really are conditioned and exposed.
Made you want to say that. You hearing me made you want to say this.
Not made me. I say it all the time anyway. But yes,
let's talk about those values. Let's mention a couple of values. I can tell you one value right now.
Please go ahead.
Trust. Trust.
Okay, so here's the thing. On the sex note, really quickly. Okay, this is all tied together. Trust, for sure. Okay, that's about. So your value would be loyalty and trust and like honesty. Okay, well, trust is really important, not just in terms of. Like, give me an example. What would you want to feel like you can trust a woman with?
If I'm saying something, it's not so much that I need to trust her. I need to believe that she trusts me. If I'm saying something, I don't want her to second guess it or to think for whatever reason there's an underlying motive for me to need to lie to her.
Wait. Can I stop you? Can I stop you really quick? Okay, right there. So that's it. So you value self-assurance, it sounds like. Someone who's self-assured. Because somebody who's self-assured is sure of themselves, and somebody who's sure of themselves is going to pick individuals who are also sure of themselves, because people who are self-assured can generally spot people who are not self-assured and lack adequate self-esteem and cannot esteem themselves from within. So trust seems to be a byproduct of self-assurance and self-trust. Because if I trust myself and I'm sure of myself, I enter into a relationship with you and I sure of myself and trust myself. And so I likely picked a partner who also trusts himself and is sure of himself. And we have shared values, and trust is a byproduct of what you're saying. So go ahead.
No, so it's basically, since I trust myself to not do anything, I trust my spouse.
Are you talking specifically about trust in terms of sex, like trusting each other sexually to not go do
not trust to do the right thing? We were talking today. I know this may be kind of, and if you want to go back to the values, that's fine. But because, we've known for a while, programs for children are from 0 to 7, right? Everything, for the most part, their programming is set between 0 and 7. And we're conscious of that, but we're like, okay, what programs do we want to instill in them? And how do we do that? I don't know if we want to go there.
So are you saying, how do you teach your children to be a certain way? Like, how do you instill these certain characteristics within them? You embody them, you display them for them. Children model. They're sponges. They will model. So you do. So for example, let's say that someone's building a puzzle or building a tower of Legos or whatever, and they're having a difficulty with one of the parts. And they're like, Dad, help me. Try it first. See if you can figure it out. Try it first. I'm here if you need support, because you're building self-assurance in them that they can do hard things, but they also don't feel abandoned or isolated. And they know that they have support and security back on the home front. So it's like, try it, give it a shot, and then helping them and navigate and work through it. Because that's not just building some friggin' Legos. It's you're building self-trust. You're building self-assurance. You're also building emotional regulation to not get so frustrated if they can't do something, to request for help properly in a way that makes sense. And if the help can't be provided, then to reorient themselves to the task and then come back again and, hey, I still need help. So there are so many simple and very inadvertent ways in which children, I mean, they're just sponges. They pick it all up, just the littlest things, which is a good and bad thing sometimes.
Yeah.
But you had a question about the argument you said you guys got into about what you had said. I want to answer that.
I don't know if we want to go there yet because Ari's still, I think, fuming about value.
He's gonna lie. No, he's gonna lie. Is it the picture on Instagram? I have some
items were you trying to address on this podcast? What actually needs to come out?
Well, I really wanted to talk about fatherhood because Shant had brought up some really good points. Really quickly. What's interesting is when you were talking about fatherhood and you had said, like, well, I'm going to be really hard to please. And what's interesting about that is in that same episode, you had said how you never had somebody to support you and everybody like you had it. Gets to your question, Shant, as well, is when you said you had all these ideas and it was like, no, don't do that. No, don't do that idea. You want to auto shop. That's not a good idea. All this kind of stuff. Well, in terms of instilling those kinds of characteristics in children, if they come to you with an idea or they, obviously not something that big career-wise when they're that young, but if they come to you with an idea, it's like exactly like you said, let's talk about this. What are the pros and cons? What are the repercussions? What do you need to get from A to B? And what's interesting is if you have that and you have that support early on, you trust yourself and it just carries with you the trajectory of your life so that when you just trust you can do things. And when you were talking about what kind of father you're going to be, you're like, well, I'm going to be hard to please. And it sounds like that's maybe perhaps, I don't want to make any assumptions, but perhaps maybe what you experience. And it's like, well, if it is, and it definitely was for me. So I'll just throw this on me 1,000%. It was for me for sure. The irony in saying that you would be hard to please is you wanted I don't want to speak for you. I'll speak for myself. The irony, if I were to say I'm going to be hard to please, is that what I really, really needed emotionally to develop and did we lose him? No, we'll just keep talking. And a person, honestly, wait, hold on, I feel bad. Can we make sure he's not pissed? Oh, I'm so bad.
No, I'm not pissed. Why would I be pissed? I'm just listening.
His face is.
Why? Because I'm paying attention.
No, I know, Ari. I've known you since you were 3 years old. Pissed face. But go on, please. I'm enjoying it. I'm having a great time.
I know, but I don't see his face. Do you see his face?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't see his face. So I thought he just
he froze.
Literally. Yeah, that's fine. I don't know where I was going. So essentially, it's like be what you needed. If you needed support, if you needed someone to encourage you, if you went to mom or dad, like if I went to my mother or father with an idea or what have you, and it was turned down, well, when I become a parent, it's like, well, I needed somebody to support me. I needed somebody to support me. Yeah. And so I was like, be what you needed, be what you didn't have. If you didn't have everything you needed, from a caregiver, which many of us did not.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Speaking for myself, it was a very, very, very long road. So I guess I really should, I'll make the examples more about me and not about you anymore.
Yeah, don't do that. I was going to say, it's not that I necessarily, I couldn't please anybody at home. It's not that I overly pleased a lot of people at home. What I needed at home was I needed help. I can tell you this, the problem that I had the most was that nobody actually came through for me except for me. Nobody actually ever did anything for me except for me. So if my kid needs help, if my kid needs resources, he's going to have all the resources that he's going to be capable of possibly getting. But in terms of pleasing me, he's not going to get a trophy for every fucking little milestone that he gets.
I don't think you should, because I think you have to teach.
Yes. So that's what I mean, Alicia. That's what I mean. Good. It's I'm not going to be hard. I'm going to be hard to please. As in, listen. Just
but you say that now.
On the honor roll.
You say that now, and trust me, I'm one of those like no trophies, fucking like, you got to earn it. You know, I'm competitive, played sports. Leo had his class pictures today. Kid looks fucking so cute. I'm like, dude, I'm so proud of you. You smiled. Like,
oh, baby,
you know,
that's so cute.
And I'm
you
just
smiled.
like, yeah, you smiled. You're like happy in the picture as a toddler. And I'm just like, but so you say that now, because I would say that, but it's like he pleases me with every little thing he does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but he's fucking 2.
Okay, true.
Bro, wait until he's 12, 15.
Yeah, okay. I'm in my little bubble.
You guys, I think you guys are. This is why I'm pissed. It's like you guys.
So you are pissed.
I know him. Trust me.
Okay, let me tell
you. You guys are really, really attacking the words and not really looking at like the long-term vision. If I'm looking at my child, I'm not looking at him as a 2-year-old. Everything they do is cute. If they shit on the dinner table, it's fucking cute. But if they do that when they're 15, we got a little bit of an issue, guys.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
let me. Okay, so
I want to be super realistic with this. Like, I'm being a little bit too harsh.
No, I think it was just, I'm in my bubble from like a 2-year-old to 5-month-old stage. So maybe I'm like looking at it different. So
the only difference between good parenting and bad parenting is that both parenting, good parenting and bad parenting, both involve discipline. The only difference is that bad parenting withdraws love as a form of discipline or when disciplining. Good parenting and bad parenting both involve discipline. The difference is just that bad parenting involves the withdrawal of love. And when you do that, now it's like conditional. Who I am and my goodness is conditional on how my mom or dad feels about me. Also, you make your child responsible for your emotions. So if you get pissed because you can be disappointed, but being pissed if your kid wants to be a cop, like now you're making him responsible for your emotions. Like that's your own shit. Like it's just an example. But yeah. And also fear, we know from the research that fear doesn't work as a tactic. Humans respond better to reinforcement. So you guys were like mentioning like how do you like instill motivation in your kid? And it's like, well, first of all, the self-trust, the self-assurance. So you build these skills and some of these characteristics within them from an early age, and then reinforcing the behavior you want to see, and then redirecting the behavior you don't want to see into an alternative, more desirable behavior.
Reinforce
let's
the good, redirect the bad.
Redirect it, yeah. And if it's really bad, like of course, like disciplining is necessary, but you can discipline. So this is another really important point. Anytime something goes wrong, if you're disciplining, the discipline is about the behavior. It's not about the child. Those are two totally different things. And the way that you get women who are 35 or men who are 35 and really insecure and can't be in healthy relationships is they were probably children early on who were told that they were wrong in some way, either directly or indirectly. As children, listen, the whole point of being a kid is to fuck up. So if you screw up as a kid, a parent's job is to not cause chaos in the life of a child, and it's to discipline the behavior, don't discipline the child. Because if you discipline the child, you're bad, as opposed to what you did was bad. What you did was wrong. The behavior was wrong, but you as a human, you are not wrong. You're worthy, and your goodness is not conditional. It's huge, huge.
There's no doubt that you're going to be an amazing mom one day, Alicia.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, no. There's a lot of good information that comes from you, especially knowing that you come from a very, very similar background. You're familiar with a lot of the challenges that a lot of our men and women have had to go through when they were kids, and sort of stopping that, or at the very least influencing that behavior to stop going into the next generation. That's sort of something that me and Shant discuss all the time. Sort of behaviors that we really, really need to stop as the next generation comes up. And it's a lot of different bad behaviors, a lot of different.
It's not bad. It's not bad. It just doesn't, it's not functional. It's not sustainable. It's really heavy. We can just do better. Intergenerational trauma is a real thing. But if you really think back to it, our parents were immigrants. They came here to like, and our parents' parents and parents' parents. And at that, when you're an immigrant and you're just trying to survive, like scarcity is a thing and you'll do whatever it takes. And they did the best they could, but we just can be a generation that does better. And we can still do that and be like really rooted in our culture. I think that's super important for sure. All right, ask me some last rapid fire questions. Shant, I want to hear your question.
The argument? I don't know how to preface it because the more I think about it, I know I'm wrong. I'm just trying to figure out a way to say it where I have some face left in this argument.
Well, how about this? Instead of saying you were wrong, why don't you just say it wasn't the best version of you? You could have done it differently.
Well, okay, here's the thing. We've had a constant discussion, right? I'll try to use some positive words. Discussion.
You don't have to. You don't have to. Just be real about it.
Yeah, no. So basically, Betty feels that she is in charge of everything in the household, which is fine. She likes that. But if she doesn't do anything, nothing will ever get done. And
you disagree.
No, I agree. I totally agree.
It's getting
but
juicy.
it bothers you. But it bothers you that's.
Well, she keeps putting it in my, like, she keeps mentioning it and putting it in my face. But I'm like, I don't put stuff in your face. I just do what I do. I've never mentioned anything about like, hey, I'm in charge of this or that or that. So I feel like it's kind of a jab, right? Which
yeah,
I get.
Is it?
You know, it's not what.
So what I would just wonder is there's a reason. Is it a jab? Like, there's a reason why she's bringing it up? Maybe. All right, I die when your face is like so up close. I love it. But okay, if you think about like, what's the function of the behavior? Why is she like, does she say it in a way where she's complaining, or is it just a reminder, or it might be a prompt of it's coming from somewhere? So it's like maybe it might be. There's these things called bid for connection. John Gottman was the first to mention it, but bids for connection are essentially when your partner. We're not very direct in any kind of relationship. So instead of saying, hey, I really need you to do this for me sometimes in the house, and I'm not saying that's what she's trying to say. I'm just saying hypothetically. Okay, so it may be. So what it may be when she says this is that it's a bid for connection. It's an indirect way of saying, I need help. Or it could be an indirect way of saying, I'm exhausted. Or could you please do this? Or I need you to do this. Or it would be nice if you did this and I didn't have to ask. It could be any of those things. Yet it's just, we sometimes, like Khalil Gibran said, between what is said and not meant and what is meant and not said, most of love is lost. We don't really say what we mean or mean what we say. So it could be that. And that's why it feels like a jab, because like you said, it's probably very well true. And for her, it might just be difficult. For women and for mothers especially, it's so difficult to ask for help because you don't want to feel like you're letting your husband down and the kids down and you're supposed to be the super mom. And it's just, moms do it all. So are you looking for perhaps maybe my advice on how to respond to it, or what, or did you just want to share it?
Well, no. So I know, like, okay, so I get it. Right. So my thing is like, we won't even be, it's an argument. And she brings it up in a way of like, hey, it's not like she's trying to like hide it through. It's like, it's being said. Right. And it's usually like we're arguing about something else. We don't fight. We argue about something else. And then she brings that up and I'm like, okay, cool. But that's the one part of it. The other part is, where, she's like, I've mentioned this a lot of times. You don't change in it. You don't do it. But I'm like, okay, I do help sometimes, right? I do. Not often, but I do. And I'm like, you just remember the times I don't, right? That's kind of my argument to that. And also it's like, I said, like, I've changed in so many other areas.
Yeah.
And I haven't changed in doing the laundry. I'm like, is it that serious? It's just laundry, and I hate doing the laundry.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I love it. It's so therapeutic. Okay, so it's a very common problem. It's like one thing spirals into multiple other things where you're trying to recruit all the different examples of the ways in which you can like counter or this one thing that was problematic, right? Like I've changed in all these other ways and this is the one thing you're focusing on. So it's like just focus on that one thing. And what I would say to her is like, hey, if you need me to, it's more just about communicating very directly and you asking her what it is that, what could I do or say that would make the situation more comfortable and easier for you? What could I do that would make you less frustrated? And
well,
when you say that,
she has told me like, hey, like I would just like some help. I don't, not all the time, just here and there, at least some effort or some appreciation. And I just haven't, right? Which I get, but I have
so
offered.
then what do you want me to tell you? You haven't done it.
But I have offered to get a maid, right? Like,
no. So no, listen, you're asking me for, this is for you. Okay, if she's told you, then do it. And if you can't do it, then figure out a way to do it. Or if you need to compromise, figure out a way to compromise. But if she's just asking you to do the laundry, help with the laundry and ask how it is that she needs that. You hate laundry? Well, this is the thing in marriages is sacrifice, and you have to do hard, difficult things that you don't want to do. Are you serious? It's all about just the fact that you don't want to do laundry.
Help here or what? Like something? Am I...
He's still stuck 30 minutes ago. In the conversation. He's
deleting his Ibiza picture off Instagram right now.
So,
right, you guys, listen. We got to wrap this up.
Do you think? Lastly, just real quick, just to
you're good.
This and sort of my question with this. Do you think that it would be a good idea to sort of ask the question, what is actually being communicated in what she's saying? Do you think that this is a good way to look at any sort of fight that happens in the relationship, is really just taking a step back and just asking the question, what is actually trying to be communicated to me? Or that's a great question. I wouldn't, because listen, at the end of the day, there's something deeper. There's something that's actually the thing. So it's like, what's the thing? Let's get to it. But you have to, here's the thing, here's the key, is you want to be in a space where the dynamic is such that your partner feels totally comfortable, maybe not totally, but knows that when they say the real thing, that you won't respond in a disproportionate way, or you won't respond in a way that is rude, disrespectful. You won't defend yourself. You won't invalidate the thing, whatever it is for them. You won't withdraw. That you will sit and stay in the difficult conversation, and you'll maintain the same amount of respect and admiration for them, and you'll work through it. That's what has to happen. Otherwise, they're just going to bullshit and they're going to beat around the bush, and they're not going to tell you, because if they tell you, you're going to like freak out. You're going to be like, oh my God, you always nag, and you're going to go for a little drive, and you're just whatever. So you want to be in a space where both individuals in a relationship, when it comes to conflict, know that, hey, we can talk about difficult shit. We can talk about difficult shit, and both of us no one's 1 foot out the door. We're both in it, and we both respect each other throughout the entire time. And so it's more so somebody can complain, right? But somebody can also give you an answer, a specific answer of behaviors they want to see. So by saying, Betty, what is it that I could do for you to change the situation to make it better for you? Totally different, because then she can say, I need you to go fold the towels. I need you 3 days a week to fold I need you on Mondays to do that. It's more specific. And then you have to do it.
I'm glad she just doesn't listen to this podcast. So, because
maybe it's a good thing that she listened to this podcast so that she can understand that you actually are trying to.
No, he's talking about Betty, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about too.
She doesn't listen. So that's what I think, to answer your question, because listen, romantic relationships are tough. They trigger us. They're hard. They're hard as fuck. They're so hard and they're difficult, but they're so amazing at the same time. It's just about knowing that conflict is inevitable and having really good conflict resolution skills that are established. Like literally, like, all right, when one of us isn't okay, we need some specific boundaries and expectations. We're both going to stay in the conversation. No one's going to walk away until we figure it out. We need to, if we need to come back to it tomorrow or something, we need to be super specific in the change of behavior we need to see from the other person for it to be okay for us. And then we need to know, are they willing and capable and able of changing the behavior in that way? Maybe they can't. Maybe we got to negotiate, Yeah. So I think you just need to fucking do the laundry, dude. I can't help you.
I tried to negotiate with a maid, but didn't work.
No, dude, then you just do the laundry. Listen, put on a podcast. You listen to just do something while it's just laundry, bro. It's not that, you're all right. You're gonna be okay. All right, you guys.
I feel like because I know we're short on time. I know you probably have to go. It's super late for you guys. But I feel like it's not long enough. I think we got to probably.
I feel like we can talk for hours. We can do a follow up. We can do a see if Ari lets us back on his podcast. And it might just be you and I. It might be too fast.
Yeah, you guys have fun next week. I'm gonna sit that one out. So anyway,
thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
Well, where can people follow you? Because you put out a lot of really, really good content, which I've been watching a lot of it.
Thank you.
Where can people follow you?
My website, Instagram, Alicia.Naser. I was like dot or period, Alicia.Naser. But then also my website is AliciaNaser.com. Those are the two best places. I have a YouTube channel. I have a Twitter, but I'm not doing much with them right now. I just need to keep it minimal. So.
We will put your handles in the description for this video.
And the link,
Yeah, the best thing is my email list, which is on my website. The second you go to my website, a little pop-up pops up. I'm moving to Substack soon. I'm shifting. Things are happening in the business and rebranding and all that. So Substack will be cool. Lots going on.
So do you work for yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. So
so I was at Boston's Children's Hospital for a bit. And then I started my own company last year and a half, but I'm finishing up my PhD. So I'm kind of easing up on things while I finish up my PhD. So I still see clients, my therapy clients, and I have virtual courses and all of that's on my website.
So if people want to use you for services, they can contact.
Yeah. Go to my website or contact at AliciaNaser.com.
Okay.
That's the email address to reach out to as well. Book recommendation you had asked about, I will say, there's so many, but I'll just give you one, specifically for men. I read it. I mean, it's for anybody, but specifically for men. The Truth by Neil Strauss. Amazing. Oh, you got to read it. I can't even,
who is it good for?
Men specifically, but it's good for anybody, but men.
Okay.
Yeah, there's so many book recommendations, but I think less is more, so I'll just give you that.
Interesting.
You said The Truth by Neil Strauss?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can send you a link for it if you need it. It's amazing.
An uncomfortable.
No, I have Google. We're good.
You're such an ass.
Type that in. Just get that typed into the old Google. They should have.
Okay, I think I'm losing connection. I can't really hear you. It's fuzzy.
Well,
yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. Don't message my wife about doing the laundry, please. And we should be good.
1,000%. That was the first thing I'm doing. Okay, but he froze for me. But on a real note, my max on 1%, so I'm gonna hang up regardless.
Okay.
All right,
thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Thank you.
You guys have a good night. Okay.